You're listening to the Wedding Biz Network, the voice of the creative entrepreneur. Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons of the weddings and event industry. And I am still so excited about Clubhouse. If you haven't heard of it, you've got to check it out. At this point, it's being beta tested. Only people with iPhones can use it, and you have to be invited. However, if you ask enough friends, you'll find someone who's in it and they can invite you. It's an incredible new social media platform, really incredible, and it's going to blow up very big. So if you're already in Clubhouse or you're about to join, be sure to follow me at Andy Kushner and join my club, The Wedding Biz. Become a member of my club, The Wedding Biz, because I'm going to be moderating a room every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, along with some other pop-up times. And there's going to be a lot more coming with previous guests from the Wedding Biz podcast who I'm going to have on Clubhouse that you could only hear there with some special conversation. So be sure to check that out. So before I introduce today's special guests, I want to mention that last week I had Bentley Meeker, who is a New York City-based contemporary artist and lighting designer. He is the president of his own company, Bentley Meeker Lighting and Staging, specializing in lighting, audio, video, staging, and rigging. And trust me, you will have never heard a conversation about lighting like you do with Bentley. So if you missed it, you must check it out from last week. And then on Wednesday on The Next Level, I had Sean Lowe of The Business of Being Creative analyze the interview with me. So now we are so fortunate because we have both Bruce Russell and Tara Fay. Tara Fay of Tara Fay Events is based in Dublin, Ireland. She's produced some of the most high-profile events and weddings in Ireland, throughout Europe, and in the United States and the Caribbean. Tara has won several event industry awards, including Ireland's Premier Wedding Planner, and is sought after as a speaker at wedding events and lectures. She's also been in numerous publications and TV and radio programs. Tara has been the co-star with Bruce Russell of RTE Ireland's production of My Big Day, Home or Away. And I interviewed Tara in episode number 226. Be sure to check out that to get her full backstory. Bruce Russell is the owner and managing director by Bruce Russell, based in London. Bruce plans, designs, and coordinates weddings, parties, and other events all over the world. He was awarded Best Wedding Planner by Belle International Bridal Awards, and Bruce has been featured in numerous international publications. His TV appearances include his role as co-star with Tara of RTE Ireland's production of My Big Day, Home or Away. And I had Bruce on episode 224, so be sure to check out his interview as well. So enjoy my conversation with Bruce Russell and Tara Fay. Bruce and Tara, it is so good to have you both on and at the same time. This is really fun.
I know. Thank you, Andy.
It's like being back pre-pandemic when we could all be together.
That's right. And I was just telling the story. I'm going to admit it to the entire listening audience that we talked about being on camera because right now we see each other. I don't usually do it that way. And my laptop does not have the greatest camera, and I like it because it's a little blurry. So I'm just going to keep it that way. So I'm just, what I want to start with is from a personal pandemic. I would love to hear from each of you, just personally, from a personal perspective, how you all are doing, especially 1 year into this pandemic. I mean, obviously, it's been such a challenge for all of you. But just before we get to business, how are you each doing personally?
Bruce, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I mean, it's been a roller coaster. I think we can all admit to that. Personally, today, much better than 2 months ago, 3 months. I lose track of months,
me
but
too.
I think what it's allowed me, or what last year's allowed me to do, is really take stock of business and work and look at the elements that you would change, and trying to find that work-life balance, which oddly now that things are getting busier with inquiries and stuff, I'm thinking, well, how can I go at the pace I was going, but still manage to keep some of the personal elements,
Yes.
the time for myself into my life,
Yes.
which is, I think, going to be the challenge for a lot of us moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting though, especially I think back, like I try to take walks as often as I can toward the end of the day. And I remember the first 3 months when we were all in shock and we still did not know what was going on and what we were going to do. And so we weren't yet busy, dealing with postponements and cancellations and all of that. And I remember just how, on one hand, of course, it's been so tough, but at the same time, so relaxing to be able to just slow down like that. And I really resonate with what you said about that. I want to keep more of a balance. I'm really afraid of losing the balance again. Already I'm getting busy as like crazy. I don't want to lose that balance. What do you think, Tara?
I think, well, I know that, we still speak every day, Bruce and I, obviously, and sometimes a few times a day. So we had, I think the first few weeks that got us through it. I think we learned a lot about each other, and we learned a lot about ourselves. I think I learned that I need to be busy. I think at the very beginning, the shock that sort of like hit home, and also because my kids were all at home and we didn't, and there were 3 different schools and each school was sort of reacting slightly differently. So it was sort of like trying to balance that, keep the show on the road, liaise with clients, sort of keep them calm, and realizing that I don't like having nothing to do. So I had to learn to do nothing. And I found that quite challenging and quite difficult. And I tried lots of different things. Like I did the Couch to 5K. I realized I don't actually like running. So I've learned about myself is that, yes, I can try lots of things, but I'm actually quite comfortable in my own company. But I like being out and doing things and sort of like having a certain amount of sort of, structure in your life, that you have things to do.
Oh, I definitely can relate to that. Structure for me, I can get overwhelmed very easily if I don't have structure and organization. Once I do, I just kind of do what I need to do within the time slots. And so, that was an interesting transition. And I miss traveling. I know both of you, travel quite a bit, and you do these beautiful, stunning events all over the place. And I really miss just getting around the world and traveling and seeing places.
Yeah, I think it was when it's taken away from you and you don't have the choice. We would all complain and give out about the fact that, you have to be up at God knows what awful time to be at the airport to stand in line to get through customs and things like that. But when it's taken away from you and you have no choice, it's amazing how long it takes to do simple tasks. And I think that was one of the things that both of us found, even speaking to each other, was that, we managed to accomplish so much in such a short period of time. And then when we had nothing to do, like getting up and getting dressed and getting out the door, even to go for a walk, was taking hours.
Yeah, I can relate to that. What about business? So, Bruce, where are you at in terms of how it's affected you? It's interesting. I think back to the interview that we did a while ago, and you talked about people making their decisions emotionally, making decisions with your heart. And, this pandemic really had an emotional impact on that aspect of what we do. How has it affected your business? Where are you at today after a year with their business?
I consider myself quite fortunate, I think I have to admit, because I didn't have overly emotional clients last year, which led to 2 things. Basically, they understood where we were, they listened to reason, they were smart about it. We postponed, didn't cancel. Things moved to this year. Things moved to other dates this year. But also, from a business perspective, the great thing was that they didn't stop paying me, which was a blessing. I think the challenge is there wasn't any new business last year, which was challenging for everyone. But I think with the clients that I had going into this year, it's been great. The only thing is we have I guess, a release date, if you want, of unlocking for the UK, which is set at the 21st of June currently. There are probably provisions that come along with that.
Yeah.
But my first wedding is scheduled for the 26th of June for 150 people. So
150
we will see
people,
if
you
that
said?
actually, 150. We'll see if that actually happens on that day. But we're planning right now as if it is. But they're aware of the challenges, and we'll move things around if we need to. But I would say that in the last 3 to 4 weeks, in the last month or so, I mean, inquiries are coming in for this year.
Wonderful.
Things are, and big things for this year, where I'm thinking, okay, just, you've got a few months between now and July and August to try and fit a few things in the summer, things for later in the year, which is great. But I think we are going to be overwhelmed with demand once, the floodgates open.
I think so. I hope so. And Tara, when you were on the show, I remember you speaking about serendipity and how you have to walk through a door of opportunity and then work it, and how it's not what goes wrong, but how you deal with it. So here was the greatest challenge I'm assuming you have ever had in your business life too. How did you deal with it in that sense? Were you able to do anything that made it perhaps a blessing? Not that we wanted, but to turn it around in some aspects of your business to make it advantageous?
Well, I think for all my clients, I gave them a sort of a week or two just to get used to the idea. And then I phoned them all and I went, look, let's just pull the Band-Aid off now. And, and they're going, but my wedding's not until May, or it's not until June, surely. And I went, I'm not saying that, but let's look at different options. And, you had to allow them go through that sort of little grieving process in their own head about the event they thought they were going to have. So it was about being open and honest with them about the reality that I was going to be with them every step of the way. And as I suppose as well, as Bruce said, I was fortunate as well because, they trusted me because I was so open with them. And yes, they did keep paying as well. And they all moved to smaller amounts of people later in the year, or else moved further on, like just kicked it further down the road. But nobody cancelled, which was great. And it was just about turning it around and getting them to sort of to look at different options that could work for them.
I want to be sure you know the wonderful news of our latest show, Stop and Smell the Roses, with acclaimed lifestyle and event design expert Preston Bailey. Not only will he share the secrets, tools, and technologies behind his extraordinary ability to create a theatrical environment out of any space, you will also discover more about the man behind the magic. Preston will reveal how his focus on personal growth has been the root of his professional success, and you'll have the opportunity for him to answer your questions along the way. Plus, Preston will be inviting onto the show many of the star celebrities he has worked with in the past, so you don't want to miss a single episode. We also have another great show on the Wedding Biz Network, The Business of Being Creative, with host Sean Lowe. Since debuting last May, his show has really taken off, and he's continuing to bring you the creative business advice he's shared with accomplished industry notables. Be sure to take advantage of Sean's talkback opportunity by recording questions and comments from right there in each episode's show notes. So, if you are a creative who is turning your craft into a business or want to take it to another level, head to theweddingbiznetwork.com and take a listen to Stop and Smell the Roses with Preston Bailey and The Business of Being Creative with Sean Lowe. That's theweddingbiznetwork.com. A lot of people I've spoken to on the show since the pandemic started talk about reinvention, pivoting, starting different aspects of their business, completely going through their structure and their business practices from scratch again. Was there anything that either of you did with your businesses in that sense?
I mean, I started working even more so with our tourism board, just on helping them create the guidelines for reopening for all of the venues. And then both Bruce and I started working with the Hotels Federation in Ireland on doing some seminars for the hoteliers that had a larger wedding business, and just assisting them in sort of selling different versions of weddings to their clients.
Did either of you make any changes with your own business?
I did, well, I guess I did a big one. I did a whole kind of rebrand, restructure, visual story element. I've been in the business now for, gosh, maybe 11, 12 years. And I realized that from the very beginning or the very start, I never really looked at the brand story for Bruce Russell and what that meant. I don't know if I could have done that 10 years ago, but I felt that now being in the business for this time was kind of the time, and I had the time physically to do it and invest my I guess time and knowledge into it and really think of who is Bruce Russell as a business, what do I want to convey, where do I want this to go, and really look at that. So I took a few months to focus on that element.
Tara, is there anything that you'll do differently as a result of what you've learned from this whole experience? Like post-COVID?
I did a lot of work on my proposals, my sales, and also thought process on the types of clients that I wanted to work with, which was quite interesting to do. So yes, I will carry all of that through, and also be much more reliant on my team because they have been amazing through this. But it's also shown that you don't necessarily need somebody sitting in front of you doing the work, because we've all been able to work remotely incredibly well. And I suppose it's, before getting in the car for a 3-hour journey to go necessarily for a meeting that could as easily be done over Zoom.
Yeah.
Yes, I do miss the face-to-face, but we're still in lockdown here, potentially until June. And it's now 15th of March. So, that there's still an element of sort of uncertainty here as to where we're going to be in the next few months. I think the pivot, and I know that was the buzzword for 2020. It seems to be one of the words of the year. I think if you pivot too much, you stop doing what you're supposed to be doing, and then you start being somebody else and being a different company.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah, what do you think, Bruce?
I tend to agree. I was, when the word pivot came out, I was like, oh, what do we need to do? Tara, where are we going? What are we doing? She's like, just stop. And I'm thinking, well, okay. And it really, and that's when kind of it forced me to look at my own business. And as Tara just said, figure out who your ideal clients are, who you want to work with, the business we want to look after and do. And part of a segue, and I think, the reasons why we've been chatting so much as well is, with Bruce and Tara together, we were about to launch before pandemic, or just as it started, kind of to launch our Bruce and Tara Live online platform, where we just decided, this is not the right time to do this. But, instead of pivot, we just kind of decided to focus on refining that offering, what that was going to be, and take the time to do it right. So even though we didn't pivot, we looked at alternative streams of revenue that we could focus on and use those to enhance our own business.
Yeah, and I think also something else that we did was we looked at, it was something that we spoke about, the two of us, and we said, this time is, people are going to be judged on how they react and what they do at this time.
Yes.
Not on anything else. So what we did is we took part in an initiative. It was called One a Day program, whereby people gave back an hour of their day every day or every week, or, whenever they could, to help people that needed the help. So we did a lot of sort of, possibly you could call it pro bono work, where we worked with couples who didn't have planners, to advise them on how to reschedule their wedding. So it was more about us giving back to the industry itself. And I think what we also found out is that there's a lot of opinions out there, but there's not a lot of good opinions out there.
Yeah.
I think what we, certainly from my perspective, what we also really wanted to do was, remain positive. And yes, it's been challenging for everyone, no matter what situation you're in personally. But we wanted our online message to be positive.
Yeah. In a moment, I want to come back to what you both are doing together. But before we get there, I also wonder what you both think about whether or not events are going to really be all that different post-COVID, especially the trend that was kind of starting before COVID to having some smaller weddings, not a big one in general, but obviously people during COVID and various aspects around the world, depending on where they were with lockdowns, were having smaller weddings, these, micro weddings, elopement weddings, that kind of thing. Do you both, I just wonder how you both feel events might be affected by that experience post-COVID.
I think that, that term elopement has always existed, but it's only suddenly been created in the last 12 months. So there have always been smaller weddings. There will always be smaller weddings. And I think people do have a very short memory. So, in 2 years' time, people will go, remember right. when we could only have weddings for 20 people.
Yeah.
I think there will always be a market for every size of wedding. And as soon as people can have the big blowout wedding with 200, 300 people, they're going to do it again. And they are going to have destination weddings again. And they are going to start traveling again. It's human nature to sort of want to be curious about things.
That's a good point. So in terms of, I'd love to hear about the status of your TV show, RTE's flagship lifestyle show, My Big Day, Home or Away, and the multimedia platform, Bruce and Tara Live, and how is all this going for both of you?
Well, I think the show, everything basically came to a halt. Sure. End of, what was that, 2019 into 2020. So certainly with recording. So the show's been syndicated or taken on by BBC Worldwide. So they've aired it in South Africa, Canada, a few other countries. So we don't quite know what the outcome of that will be. I know that it still remains quite popular online on RTE Player in Ireland as a source of wedding entertainment, but also as we said from the beginning, kind of positive look at weddings and what you can do. So as I said, we've kept that kind of in the background and really built Bruce and Tara Live as a platform to support the reason why we started in the first place, was that there are so many couples out there who are overwhelmed with information, and the challenges that they face today planning their own wedding on their own can be quite stressful.
So how are you all, just so people who might not be aware of it, can you say more about what you both do together with that?
So it's an online platform, and people will sign up for a subscription to it. So they get access to, and this is where we've possibly changed over the last few months and spent the last year refining it. So there's a series of videos where we discuss, and these were recorded over a year ago, and they've been ready, sitting on the shelf for over a year. But they also get a digital book, which, depending on the platform or the subscription that they sign up for, will have different information in it. But it is basically templates and checklists for them, everything from creating their budget to creating their timeline to the checklist for the morning of the wedding. So they're beautifully put together digital books with content and photography and checklists that they fill in online.
We sort of we're our worst salespeople, by the way, so we're sort of underselling it right now.
Yeah,
I think, having looked back at it, these videos, and there are 21, 22 plus videos that are 15 to 20 minutes long each, conversations between the two of us that really go through every single element of planning a wedding. Whether that's, disasters to avoid with the wedding cake, whether it's how to fire your bridesmaid, how to deal with your mother-in-law, what to do when you go for a dress fitting. I mean, there's so much content in there. And you'll go online and look for templates on timelines or budgets, how to create your budget. But we go into detail, and basically the information we provide is information that we use to do our own jobs effectively. But then on top of that content is access to us, whether through a closed Facebook group, whether through different webinars that we will do for certain topics throughout, and a number of live events that we'll be able to do when we actually get back to meeting in person.
Yeah. Well, after this, I'm going to let the audience know how to find each of you individually, about your businesses. What about together? What is the website? What is the social media handles? How can people find out more about what you're doing together?
It's bruceandtaralive.com, and it's at Bruce and Tara on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for coming back on. It's so good just to see your faces and to touch base again. I remember the last time we did this, it was in person, at an Engage.
In Mexico.
That's right. It seems like years and years and years ago.
It does. It seems like years ago, and yet it seems like a nanosecond.
I know, it does. So this has really been enjoyable, and I wish you both the best, and we will definitely keep in touch for sure.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Bruce Russell and Tara Fay. Be sure to check out their websites. For Tara, it is Xena, that's spelled Xena -productions.com. Again, Xena-productions.com. And her social media handle is Tara Fay Events. For Bruce, his site is bybrucerussell.com. Again, bybrucerussell.com. His social media handle is Bruce Russell. If you miss any of this, you can get it in the show notes at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and also give it a top review wherever you get your podcasts from. And once again, I want to mention on Clubhouse, follow me at Andy Kushner on Clubhouse and join the Wedding Biz Club. We'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.